Okay, chapter 3, day 1. What we're going to focus on now is how do we display quantitative data. So chapter 2 is all about categorical data, like shirt color, hair color, eye color, grade level, what job you did, what kind of car did you drive. This chapter is on the quantities. So how tall are you? How old are you? How tall does a plant grow? Anything that's numerical that you can calculate an average of. So quantitative data are numerical values that you can find an average of, and it would make sense to do that. So you can add them up, divide by how many, and calculate an average. Grade level is not quantitative. You know, 9th grade plus 9th grade plus 10th grade plus 11th grade, add them up, divide by 4 would not make sense to do a grade level that way. Now age, that's quantitative. Add up your ages, divide by how many would give you an average age for a class. But grade level is not quantitative. So it's numerical, and you would take an average, and it would make sense to take an average. So what we're going to do is we are going to make displays of these this data. So first type we're going to talk about is a histogram. I'm pretty sure you've drawn histograms in the past. It's just been a few years. So some key things about a histogram. Okay, so one, on your vertical axis is the frequency, or how many times the data happens. On the bottom is your classes, and so you organize your data by something that's convenient, and you have to have your lowest value and your highest value included in your scaling. So here's a set of data in which no numbers were below 40 and no numbers were above 90. So I just did 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Notice a couple things. One, I don't say that this is 40 to 50. This line is 40. This line is 50. This line is 60. And if a number falls on exactly 40, it falls in the bar to this side. So I count how many pieces of data are 40 all the way up to 49, but not including 50. And in this case, there were 4 pieces of data that fell in this range. 50 to 59, but not including 60, there were 10 of them. And then there were 6 in the next bunch. There was nothing from 70 to 79, not including 80. And then from 80 to 90, it looks like there were 2 of them. So this was just an example. Now, this has to have a label. Whatever this variable is, you have to label it. So if this was height, then this would be height with its dimension, inches, centimeters, whatever. This will always say frequency on the side. So if a data value lands on the line, you put it in the bar to the right of the line. So again, any 40s go in this bar, any 50 goes in this bar, 60 in this bar, and so on. And that's a histogram. Notice the bars touch that are adjacent to each other in scaling. There is no data here, so this edge of this bar doesn't touch this bar. But these bars have to touch. The edges have to touch each other because this is right next to it in the scale. Another type of graph we have is called a dot plot or number line plot. So each data value gets its own dot. So here's some data that I have. In this case, I scale it on a number line like 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. And for this case, every data point gets a dot. So there were 1 at 50, 3 that were at 51, 1 at 52, 2 at 53. No one had a value of 54, 2 at 55, and 1 at 56. I'm just making up this data. But what I'm showing you is, in a dot plot, each value gets its own dot, or you could use an X. And now you can easily see there's 1 of these, 3 of these, 1, 2, none, 2, and 1. You still have to label what this variable is. And this x-axis is a number line. So you lay out your number line and then you put your dots. Next type of graph is a stem and leaf plot, which I don't think you guys have drawn yet. So a stem and leaf plot is as follows. We set up a vertical line, and the stems of our numbers go on the left, the leaves go on the right, and what you have to keep in mind is the stem can be any number of digits, but the leaf can only be one digit. And the stems have to encompass all of the data, and if there are any data values missing, you still have to have a stem there to hold place. So, for example, let's say, let me just get rid of one of these pieces of data here. All right, so let's say this is our data. Our lowest number is 60, our highest number is 100. I could make the tens digit the stem and the ones digit the leaf. So if my tens digit was the stem, so I have a 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 100s would be my stems. My first leaf would represent the number 60. So that is a 6 in the tens digit, a 0 in the ones digit. So that is 60. 61, 61. 61 again, 61. 61 again, 61. Notice, if there are 3 61s, there better be 3 ones out here in the leaf. Every leaf is a piece of data. I've got 4 pieces of data. I've listed 4 leaves so far in the 60s. There's no comma needed between them because it is understood that the leaf is only one digit, so you do not put commas here. Okay? 70s. Are there any 70s? No. No 70s. So that just stays blank. Nothing in the 70s. I have an 83. I have an 84. I have an 85. Now, these numbers do not have to go in order. They don't. You can put them in order if you like, but I just say put them as you see them. 91, 94, and 100. So this is, the tens place has a 10 in it, and then a 0, so that would be the number 100. And that is a stem and leaf of this data set. But a stem and leaf is not complete unless you give it a key, because you have to tell the reader what it is that they're looking at. So our key here is going to be as follows. Let's just take the first one. 6/0 equals the number 60. Now, let's say all of this data was in centimeters. So this would be 60 centimeters. You need your units in the key as well. So let's take a look. Here's an example. Let's make a histogram and a stem and leaf of the height of corn. So here are some corn heights that I measured in centimeters. Okay, the data's in centimeters. Here are the corn heights. I'm going to tell you right now, it's easier if you make a stem and leaf plot first, because histograms are extremely easy once you have your stem and leaf completed. So, again, I think I'm going to make my stems the tens place. So, 2 is my lowest stem, it looks like. And my highest goes all the way up to 12. So 2, I'm going to need a lot of room here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, some of the ones you see in your textbook might start out at 12 and go down to 2. It doesn't matter. I usually just start lowest to highest. And now I put my data in. So I have 24, 28, 33, 42, no 50, so it just stays blank. 66, 67, 68, 72, 88, 105, 107. So I got to move down here a little bit. 105, 107, there were no in the 90s, none in the 90s. 110, 111, and 121. So 110, 111, 121. And that would be a stem and leaf plot for the data, except I don't have a key. So I have to have a key. Key 2/4 equals 24 centimeters. Now this has value to it. But it says also make a histogram. All right, so I can use these for my histogram and just go up by tens. So let me make a histogram. So I'm going to need a x-axis and a y-axis. And I'm going to start out and I'm going 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120. So I scale the bottom, and this is corn height in centimeters. I have to have a label there. Over here for histograms, this is always frequency, and if I look, my most frequent number is 3. So I only need to go 1, 2, 3. That's it. So now I put a bar in, and again, I have to count. So there are 2 numbers in the 20s, 1 in the 30s, 1 in the 40s. So at the 20s, I go up to the 2 mark, over and down. 1 in the 30s, it shares this edge. 1 in the 40s, it shares this edge. Nothing in the 50s, so there's going to be a gap there. 3 in the 60s, 1 in the 70s, and 1 in the 80s. So, starting with the 60 mark, up to 3, over and down. And then 1 in the 70s, share the edge. 1 in the 80s, share the edge. Nothing in the 90s, 2 of them in the 100s, so I go up to 2, over and down. Actually, this goes a little bit higher. This one goes up to 3, and I just want to make sure it goes all the way up to 3. That looks better. There we go. So this one's at 2 in the 100s. Bring this down just a little bit. There we go. That's 2 in the 100s. 2 in the 110s, so again, share the edge and come down. And I have 1 in the 120s. Well, I don't have a spot for the 120s to end, so I better make a mark out here of 130, so that way I have room for 1, share the edge and down. And that is a complete histogram of that data. So what are we doing in class? We're going to be drawing stem and leaf plots. We're going to be drawing histograms and dot plots.